Hello and welcome to Reading Reddit. This is a one-story video today, and this has an update as well. And I have my own feelings about it, but let's see what's going on with you and what your thoughts are on the matter. Let me just make sure that everything is set. Okay. Yep, let me just move that real quick. So our one story today will be, am I the asshole for prioritizing my children's relationship over my wife's preference? I have one son with my ex-wife and three kids with my current wife. My oldest is 19. The other kids are 13, 12, and 6. All boys except for the 12-year-old. My oldest traveled overseas during summer break, but there was a 2-week period where he was at school but had no classes and no commitments. He wanted us to come and visit him. I said that we would go, and when I told my wife, she was annoyed I committed without asking her. I said we didn't have plans. She said I couldn't know that for sure without asking her. I said if there are plans I don't know about, surely that means she made a commitment without asking me. That argument fizzled out. However, she later informed me we were invited to go on a trip with some friends that would overlap, and she wanted to go on the trip. I said we already had plans. She said she never agreed to the plans, and the argument resumed. Eventually, I said she could do whatever she wanted, but the kids and I were going to fly out to visit my son. I said it's important for them to spend time together so they continue to have a good relationship now that he's an adult, and we probably won't see him as much. She said, I know she hates California, where her school is, and it's insensitive for me to just assume she's okay with going. I told her if she doesn't want to go, don't go. I'll go along with the kids. She didn't want that, and that fight got intense. So I said we should ask the kids what they want to do. When we asked the kids, she really talked up her vacation and poo-pooed going to California, but the kids wanted to see their brother. She still didn't want me to take them after that, and we continued to argue about it right up until the kids and I left. We had a great trip. Ever since we returned from the trip, she's been frosty towards me. Last week she dropped the bombshell of wanting to do couples counseling. I agreed. We just found someone to made an appointment for September. All my friends say counseling is a bad sign, the divorced and married alike. I guess I just want to know what I'm in for. Am I going in and immediately getting roasted for my actions? Ultimately, I love my wife and I love my kids, and I want my kids to have a good relationship with each other. Is that so bad? So that definitely not at all. And we have some comments here. The first one is, I think your wife likes your son because he reminds her that you had a life before her. That's some purity culture nonsense. But the way she talked up her vacation plans and they still wanted to see their brother is hilarious and ironic too. One of the first questions you should be asking in therapy is, why don't you like my son? I'm honestly wondering if OP never realized all that time that his wife does not like the 19-year-old, because it doesn't seem like she developed recently, something she developed recently. She went to great lengths to prevent this trip from happening, which is very sus and weird. It would be one thing if she didn't want to go, but involving the kids, something deeper is going on here. Exactly. She is being incredibly selfish. She decided she didn't like California and therefore didn't want to go. She found something else she thought was better than seeing her stepson or allowing her own children to have a good bond with their brother. And as OP rightfully states, if she had other plans he didn't know about, it meant she was a hypocrite and going about making plans without him. Whether or not the counseling goes well is kind of determined by how good the therapist is and who found them. OP's wife could have found someone she thinks will be 100% on her side and just dump on him. But if they have a good unbiased therapist, I think it would help her realize how selfish her actions were in this instance. OP definitely should have asked before telling his wife or eldest that they would come out. But all the other kids agreed they wanted to go. She should have taken the loss on the family vote and been a team player. So that is the first there. And we have an update. Drum roll, please. Okay. So this update was so the first was 13 days ago, then as of the time of this recording. So the next day is when we have the update. Several people commented on my blog, or my post asking, more like demanding by the way, that I speak to my son about my wife. We spoke today. I asked him if he was disappointed that she didn't come with us to visit him, and he said no, and that he wasn't surprised she didn't come. I asked why that was, and he just said they aren't close. I asked how he felt about that, and he said he didn't feel positively or negatively about it. I asked him if she was a good stepmother to him. He said sure. He said that honestly he didn't really consider her a stepmother because he never truly lived with her. He only interacted with her when he was visiting me, and even then not very much. With me and his siblings, there are frequent calls and video chats between visits. With her, nothing. So even though technically she's a stepmother to him, he's just her name because she was a good her name to him. We talked about other things afterwards, but the conversation bothered me. Tonight, I talked to my wife about it. I asked her how she felt about my son. She said, he's a fine young man. I asked if she loved him. She said that was a weird question. I said I didn't think it was. She said she loves me and I love him, so she loves him by proxy. Yeah, you don't love people by proxy. You either do or you don't. That bothered me too, but I pushed past it. I asked why she didn't want to visit him. She said he is an adult and adults need to establish their own lives, not remain dependent on their childhood support systems. What? She said it's all well and good to link up if we are already going somewhere, but I know she doesn't like California, so if she went, it would only be to see him, and she thinks that's a strange thing to do. I asked, doesn't she want all the kids to remain close? She said no, and it's odd that I do. She reminded me that she isn't close to her sister at all. They don't talk only occasionally and sometimes go years without seeing each other in person. When they do see each other, they get along fine, but they don't need to see each other. She also pointed out that I barely knew my brother before he passed, which is a sore spot for me. She reminded me that my mother and uncle were estranged and I went without seeing my cousin for 10 years because of it. With all this being the norm, it makes no sense to her that all the kids spending time together would be such a high priority. I told her I didn't consider those relationships models to emulate. I want all the kids to be close. She said we can't force them to be close. I said no one is forcing them to be close. They are close. However, if we don't facilitate them spending time together, they'll drift away. She said it's natural for siblings to drift apart once they reach adulthood. She said that it's inherent to growing up, and by trying to prevent that, I'm preventing my son from maturing. I said we fundamentally disagree on this issue, but I am not willing to cut my son out. She said no one is suggesting that, but that I was being dramatic. Gaslighting. She said it's weird that I acted like we hadn't seen my son in forever when we flew out over his birthday. That was 6 months ago and only for the weekend. That was barely a visit. So she said, so we all have to be together at least once every 6 months? I said, not all of us, but yeah, I want to see my son at least twice a year, and I want the kids to be with us if at all possible. She said, that's a little crazy because he's an adult with his own life, but if he is cool with it and that's what I want, that's fine. She said the only issue is she doesn't want to have to schedule everything in our life around my son. She doesn't want me forcing the kids to maintain the relationship. They already have a relationship, they have a good one. She just doesn't want them around him. I said, since we already have this therapy appointment in September, let's table the topic until then. At least now we both understand the other's position, so we know what we'll be working on. I asked her if she would stop being frosty to me in the meantime, and she agreed to thaw out. She said getting everything out in the open eased her resentment. What? Yeah, the resentment because you got egg on your face for talking up a vacation and your kids wanted to see their brother? I think there definitely is a good foundation for a compromise. I'm sure this therapist will be able to help us hammer out an agreement. I think my wife's perspective on sibling relationship is sort of weird, but she feels the same way about me, so I'm sure we're slightly off center. I guess I never realized how neutral my wife and son were about each other. It kind of bums me out. but I know I'm being unreasonable because neither of them are unhappy, so my dissatisfaction comes from a selfish place. At least OP is emotionally mature enough to realize that, yeah, even though they don't care for one another, like, even though they're not really close to one another as he is to his siblings, at least he can acknowledge that that he wants that, and that it's not who they are to each other. To shorten it up, took your advice, everything is on the path to resolution, although not fully resolved. So then we're going to look at a few more comments. We're going to have four of them. So the first one is the Sibs love him and have a wonderful relationship. That is half the battle of a blended family, and many would pray to every god for this. The major problem is the wife. She's horrible in this situation. She doesn't like OP's son, and he has to see it for what it is. And someone replies to that comment saying, exactly. For some reason, which she will not admit to, she wants to isolate and excise OP's oldest son out of their lives. To her, he seems to be an encumbrance, an unwanted annoyance to be excised, ditched. In my humble opinion, this is a repulsive attitude towards him that has me PO'd. She is the problem that OP has yet to fully accept. He has an inkling, but it's tough to believe. He married a cold-hearted blump whose only love and concern is for her three kids, which, if she uses the same parenting plan that she has had for his oldest, will kick him out and toss her kids out of the family embrace once they turn into adults at 18, at which time they are to be released into the world with no family net or support, just alone, and she would not encourage, but actively discourage siblings' bonds of love and affection. To have each find and create their own separate families by themselves in their late teenage years. Seriously, this is her idea of reaching the required adult maturity level needed to function in the world. At least, this is how she thinks OP's oldest son has got to do it. I seriously doubt her own birth children will be doused with such isolationism. She's uninterested and unconcerned about OP's well-being, OP's oldest well-being. She wants the thorn out of her personal little family. This is the reddest, blaring alarm of asshole alert to OP, in my humble opinion. And the next comment is it just me or the wife's saying that adults need to establish their own lives, not to remain dependent on their childhood support systems, when she herself relies on her own father buying her things outside her budget, OP mentioned in comments. Well, isn't that double standards-ish? Most definitely. And then one where we have a reply. I think your wife is full of it. When your older sons you have together are 19 and 20 and move out, the youngest is 13. She'll be all about the older ones maintaining a relationship with the youngest ones and helping facilitate that. She just doesn't care to maintain her relationship with your son. It's not a priority to her. She has no animosity towards him, he's just not all that important to her. I disagree with the animosity piece, but I concur that he is not all that important to her. And if one of them moves, and then another person replies, and if one of them moves to California, she's going to be scheduling flights to see them every chance she gets. She doesn't like OP's son. I can't shake the feeling, especially after this update. So, how do you feel about this update? I think that she just doesn't care about OP's son. That is very clear. And, she was trying to play up her vacation and poo-poo the other ones, but the kids were like, we want to go see our big brother. And I absolutely love that. Again, as one of the commenters said, so many step families would love to, like, they would pray to all the gods that, like, ever existed for the kind of relationship that OP's son has with his half siblings or with his siblings, because they love him, he loves them, they don't call, well, he doesn't call them half siblings, but they wanted to see their brother and they got to see their brother in California. So I don't know what the problem is other than OP's wife. See you soon. Thank you so much for joining me. You have a most excellent day.